today's cup of coffee, the rain has definitely run us inside. We are under either a flash flood or a flood watch, and I think we've got like a
flood warning.
And it's like a tornado warning until up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hoping that that's going to pass us by, but
we can hope.
Yeah, and we've got youngest kid here. Wasn't sure whether he was going to be here or not. I
feel like shit.
He's feeling a little bit puny. He's going through a systemic cleanse and or purge at the moment.
I'm detoxing. Help me.
He is. He's detoxing. His system had gotten rather toxic, and so we do these from time to time.
I was full of shit. I was so full of shit. The toilet was jealous, and the toilet's jealous no more.
Well, anyhow, it's like they could have done without knowing that. Sometimes it's best to allude to things instead of going into.
And it's best to cloud things with humor.
Well, that's true too. Anyhow, what we have today comes from TexasHillCountry.com. I will provide the link. And this is about the black-eyed kids. And it says the chilling legend that began in Abilene. And this is originally by Anna Hedges, written October 31st of 2018. So this was originally written up as a Halloween-esque story, but it's really not. And so it says one terrifying folk phenomenon might be wary of certain children, the black-eyed kids. There are dozens of stories circulating, each of them separate instances and not just occurring on Halloween, but all of them follow a very similar pattern. Kids are with completely blacked out eyes arrive at someone's home or vehicle, knock on the door, and then insist upon being let inside. Anyone who encounters them almost immediately begins to feel an overwhelming sense of dread. Besides black-eyed kids, these children, usually between the ages of 6 and 16, typically appear normal. Sometimes their clothing is outdated. In extremely unusual instances, people have reported them to have talon-like feet. Overall, though, they just look like normal kids. In a way, that's what's scariest about them. While it may not be the earliest sighting of all time, the earliest reported sighting was in 1996 by Brian Bethel, a journalist from Abilene, Texas. In Bethel's report, he describes a late evening out in his vehicle. He had stopped in a parking lot near a movie theater to write a check. He was so absorbed in his task that he didn't notice two young boys approach his car. He didn't notice until the older boy tapped the driver's side window. Bethel rolled down his window and noted immediately a soul-racking fear, though he couldn't understand why. The older boy said that he and his brother wanted to catch a movie but had forgotten their money at home and asked if Bethel could give them a ride. They assured him that it wouldn't take long, that they were just two kids and that they didn't have a gun. Bethel found the assurances unnerving and noted that the last showing of the film they wanted to see had already started and would nearly be over by the time that he could drive them anywhere and get back. In his recount of the incident, he stated that when he broke eye contact with them, his fear became all-encompassing, and it wasn't until he broke the eye contact that their eyes became completely blackened out. The older boy began to get frustrated when Bethel made excuses for not giving them a ride and said that they couldn't get into the car unless Bethel said it was okay. After that, Bethel tore out of the parking lot. To this day, he still stands by his story. Now, it's easy to disbelieve Bethel's story. The internet has made growing new legends relatively easy with sites like Creepypasta, Subreddit, and No Sleep, and all of which have stories of black-eyed kids. However, Bethel's story predates these websites. It wasn't until his story became more widely known that lots of folks came forward with their own black-eyed kids encounters. Some of them take place in Texas. There's a couple stories that are dating back to 1974 and 1950 in other countries. They became such a popular phenomenon, whether real or purely web-based, that a movie came out about them in 2015. Now, supposedly the kids are more likely to approach people who already know about them. So keep an eye out for soulless black eyes and that feeling of dread. And if you happen to encounter one of these otherworldly children, don't let them into their home, car, business, whatever it is. And It was interesting to know that this started out in Abilene, Texas, or that was one of the first accounts of them. I had heard about the phenomenon quite a while ago, actually on some religious shows.
Mm-hmm. I've heard about them for like a few years now. Back in the day, there used to be a YouTube channel, it was just one big, like, it was fake, but it was off the legend of the black-eyed children. It was called The Haunting of Sunshine Girl.
Uh-huh.
It was really interesting. There was also this other YouTube channel. I think it was Fantastic Amazing Daily or something like that, or Fantastic Daily, Amazing Daily. Either way, he was doing stuff as far as black-eyed children, and then just disappeared off of YouTube.
Right.
It turns out he was faking a lot of this stuff as well.
Right.
Yeah, there's been many videos on YouTube about it, and I used to binge watch those Fantastic Daily videos because I found them fascinating, and at the time I actually thought they were real. And up until fairly recently, I continued to think they were real.
Well, as far as the phenomenon of the black-eyed children, and that was like I was researching about Slender Man before I couldn't quite determine which one I wanted to do. That and
for a fact, isn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't, because that could be as far as calling things into being, and we had talked about that before. As far as that can happen, that you can definitely cause things to manifest. But like I said, with the black-eyed children, I had heard of this quite a few years ago. And same thing. It's the same protocol, if you want to call it that. Both the good guys and the bad guys, you have to invite them in.
Yeah.
And so with
like vampires almost.
It's like any of them. You know, the only thing that I don't know, there's still question about, is as far as the demonic entities with kids who have been abused.
Mm-hmm.
So because those kids are below the age of accountability, how does that happen? That is the question that I have on that. You know, of course, and as far as the kids that were messing with Ouija boards and stuff like that and didn't have proper parental guidance on these things.
Mm-hmm.
And with the black-eyed kids, you wonder if that goes in with some of the accounts where there is a noise that sounds like a baby crying at night.
I don't think so.
Well, I do too, and not it's the same entity.
It's definitely not the same entity, but
it's trying to evoke human response, which is child, protect, got to help, different things like that. And I think that it's trying to feed on that as far as human empathy.
Oh yeah, it's definitely feeding upon that. It's a very manipulative entity, whatever.
Any of these things are manipulative. They're very opportunistic.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. Like the black-eyed children, there have been some people being like they sort of got hypnotized by them and was already reaching it to the door, and by the time they had their hand on the door and it was turning the knob, they snapped back into it and was like, oh hell no.
Right.
There have been cases of people letting them in. Sometimes they don't show up again, and sometimes, mostly, bad shit starts to happen to those people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what I wondered. Were there any accounts where someone had allowed them into the home and then...
There was this one that I think it was either the lady or her husband let them in. It was either one. They went to the bathroom. The children did. And then they disappeared. They vanished. I think the husband started coughing up this black bile, and he collapsed onto the floor, and I don't remember if he died or not. But then the lady started coughing up the black bile as well. it's been a long time since I've read that story,
Right.
that encounter, so I don't remember much about it. That's the only thing that really stood out to me.
Sure.
As far as now,
Well, anytime that you invite something like that into your dwelling,
I think a lot of other creepy shit started happening as well, other than,
that also opens you up to having things happen to your person and anybody else, that's in your home.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's you've got to always be careful who you let in your house, and that includes regular people.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they carry stuff on their shoes.
Absolutely, people carry stuff in on the soles of their feet, and so you've got to really be cautious who you let in your house. If it's got a negative energy, you stand right here on the porch.
Exactly.
That are stand right there in the yard.
Yeah.
So with these phenomenon, and it's like, I don't think that necessarily that the internet is creating some of these things as much as it is giving an opportunity for people to share some of these things that have been happening.
Oh no, they definitely create some entities, like they created Slender Man.
Well, now the Slender Man thing, absolutely. Do I believe that has manifest? I do.
I disagree.
You can call things into being.
I don't think that was possible.
You can call things into being.
That those children, which caused the whole thing to just have a clusterfuck and caused a shitstorm for the media and such like that. The media caused a huge shitstorm, which didn't need to be. Those children were obviously already very mentally ill.
Well, they're kids. Kids are very easily manipulated.
Not to that extent. Not to that extent.
Well,
they were already mentally ill, and I think there is documentation of them being already mentally ill. And, they somehow became convinced. Because the whole Slender Man and the mansion thing, which is what they were trying to do, get into his mansion, that shit didn't happen until the fucking video games came along.
right.
And the creepypasta fandom and the fan stories and stuff like that. Slender Man didn't have a mansion in the original story. He was just some tall creature that took children.
Right. Well, that was what I was researching.
There is an actual entity that does that, but he doesn't go by the name of Slender Man, and he certainly doesn't have a suit.
Well, what I had, as far as researching on that, and it explained the person who had originally come up with that theory and stuff, and we can still do that. But the little girl that was involved in it is now 19 and had spent 3 years in a mental institution and was recently released.
Well, yeah, she got fucked up.
Yeah. And it's really a sad phenomenon that somebody would, get that convinced. Mm-hmm. And even as far as black-eyed kids in this day and time, all kids. Seriously, because we've got a world that is so messed up.
I don't know, I wanted to get a pair of scaleras, black scaleras, and go back to the church that I used to go to and just sit in the back with these huge pairs of sunglasses and wait for someone to tell me to take them off and then just beat the shit out of them.
As somebody who, that you're just attention seeking, but anyhow.
No, that's me wanting to start a
that's your attention seeking on that.
People out.
Nobody's going to pay attention to that these days, Clay. They're really not. But as somebody who worked with children who did have mental health issues, and even then, when I was doing that, now it's been quite a while, there were severe security concerns that I had. Mm-hmm. And knowing what I know now, and it's like it puts these children that do have needs and stuff, it's really scary because there's no place to put these kids if they do need to be hospitalized or in some kind of a facility, because nobody wants the liability of it as far as the foster care system and stuff like that. Somebody that we know said, yes, they did have to have cameras installed in their home because that they were taking care of foster kids. And you never know. Yeah. Because the brains of a lot of kids have become so warped. Mm-hmm. Even at this point in time, like I said, they don't even have to have black eyes.
That's true.
So anyhow, just, teenagers scared the living shit out of me.
If you see anyone
My
with
Chemical
black
Romance, if you're not familiar with that.
If children come to your door with black eyes asking you to let them in, don't let them in.
Don't let them in.
Don't let them in.
Like I said, it's one of those, and if you've got to let somebody in, make sure you got a witness. For real.
Or cameras. But
Or
then
cameras.
Again, they mess up cameras.
Yeah. But anyhow,
Technology.
if you've
Hugely.
got supernatural or paranormal events that you would like to share, if you've had encounters with UFOs, aliens, black-eyed kids, cryptids, Bigfoot, Slender Man, Wendigos, manifesting
Not deer.
whatever things. If you've had local legends, family legends, and myths. Somebody earlier today, it's like, well, you're just reading things. Well, if somebody's not contributing personal experiences, I have to do something.
Yeah.
So, I really enjoy when people, tell the personal experiences. But I can't force them. I can give them the email address and stuff like that. But that's all I can do. But there are some interesting things out there that can very much keep things rolling on that.
I'd recommend you going on to No Sleep and getting some of the stories.
I might. If you've got another, is it Reddit?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a subreddit.
Okay. If you've got websites that you would like to share with me about different things like this, all that stuff, email me at cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. Yeah, and let's hope we don't get flooded out. Y'all have a beautiful, blessed day.
Black-eyed children.